Season 3 of You and Me Kid is brought to you by Seattle Sperm Bank. If you're planning to become a single parent by choice, you know this journey can be both exciting and daunting. That's where Seattle Sperm Bank comes in. They've got an amazing selection of donors and a super supportive team ready to help you find the right match. They were so warm, helpful, and kind to me as I picked my donor. I cannot recommend them enough. From the screening process to all the resources they offer, I really felt like I had an expert partner through the whole process. For my listeners who want to check them out, head to seattlespermbank.com and grab a free all-access pass using the code YouAndMeKid to start your search today. Welcome to Season 3 of You and Me Kid, a podcast about starting and raising a family on your own, where I speak with other single moms, those still considering, and experts in relevant fields to give you a real sense of what the day-to-day experience of solo parenting looks and feels like. So wherever you are in the process, I hope this podcast provides some support, helpful info, and most importantly, humor. Thanks so much for listening. Now let's get to it. I have been so excited to talk to you. I feel like you're in the Boundless Life cult, but I am so obsessed with this company, this idea. I can't wait to go. I've been telling everybody about it. And when I talked to Elodie, I was just like, I think I know everything about this company now, and I haven't even gone, and I'm so obsessed. And I was really thrilled to hear how big of a single parent population is in this Boundless community. So before we get into Boundless, I'd love to just hear from you a little bit about your single mom journey. How did you get to this place? And then we'll chat about you taking your family to Italy.
Yes, for sure. So I am a single parent of a 9-year-old boy, and we are from a really beautiful part of Australia on the eastern seaboard in Queensland. We started our life together in Melbourne, which is in the southern part of Australia. And I was a single parent from the day he was born. However, yes, it was by choice. I should say it was by choice. I fell pregnant quite early on into a relationship with somebody that I'd only known as a friend for about 6 months. And then it was a few weeks into the relationship where I was like, not sure about this. But I feel like that was when I fell pregnant very early on. And then when I found out I was pregnant, I was already not happy in the relationship. But having a child was not something that was in my plan for my life. And I was 35 years old, which is a strange thing to say at that age. But I think it's because I'd never been in a relationship I'd been in some long-term relationships, nothing that was really strong enough and solid enough where I felt safe enough to even dream of having a family with that person. And so when this happened, I was like, oh my gosh, like, what am I meant to do? Because I was curious about having a baby. I think I just never allowed myself the option to dream and to think about it. And so to, I guess, cut that long story short, I decided to keep the baby, but I had to end the relationship like halfway through that pregnancy for my own happiness, sanity, all of the things. And it was a hard decision because living in Melbourne, I was completely on my own. I didn't have any family. I was living a bit of a party lifestyle, still at that age, traveling when I felt like it, just one of those completely living for the moment. And then I chose to have this beautiful baby, and man, I didn't know a single thing, not only about pregnancy, but about birth, about parenting at all, because I didn't grow up with babies around me in our family. I had a few cousins and my sisters close in age, but there was no babies and and because I had moved cities from Sydney to Melbourne, all of my friends that had started having babies were also not in Melbourne. So I wasn't around for that either. So I was literally thrown in the deep end. And then 3 months into this very early postpartum period, I was struggling. And the dad was in and out very briefly, not really much of a support. So I decided to move back to Sydney and live with my mum, because my mum, honestly, if it wasn't for her, I don't know how I would have survived, because I'm sure your listeners all know, as a single parent, you need community, you need help. Like so many I feel like so many women grow up thinking I can go it alone. That whole feminist movement of we can do it all, we can do everything, we can have the career, we can have the family, we can choose. But the reality of that, it's not an easy road if you don't have the support. I moved back to Sydney into an apartment with my mum and my stepdad thinking, oh, it's just going to be 3 months until I get on my feet. It ended up being 3.5 years. And bless them so much because we got through those challenging earlier years. And then we all decided to move states to Queensland. And in the midst of this, when I was 6 months, when my son was 6 months old, I had to go back to work. I was a single parent. I was like, I need to be bringing an income in now. So I don't know what it's like in the States. I feel like mums don't get as much leeway to have that much time off. Even 6 months, it doesn't seem like much to me, but I think you guys have it a little bit worse than that. Yeah, went back to work and we built a life in Queensland. So that's like the early story. I've had a few short-lived relationships in the last 5 years, but again, nothing with no one that I want to really merge lives and have more children with. I think that era's probably past. I'm 44 and a half now, so I probably won't have other children, but I'm really grateful for my beautiful 9-year-old. And he's been an absolute treasure. Obviously, the best thing that's ever happened to me. I absolutely love being a mum, love being his mum.
I'm so curious what the kind of cultural discussion surrounding single parenthood in Australia is, because I feel like I'm right around your age too, and I got started a little bit later than you, but I felt like when I was just starting this process, nobody was talking about it. Nobody was talking about single parenting, or that was an option outside of divorce. And now in the US, it's a huge part of the discussion. IVF, fertility, single parenting by choice, like all of it is really, I think, starting to gain in popularity, or at least people are openly talking about it in a way that they weren't before. What's the Australian kind of sense of that? Were you guys ahead of us? I'm guessing you were.
Oh, look, I don't know. I think similar, because there are definitely more discussions. Like, I definitely have met women recently who are choosing to go down that road because they are approaching 40. They haven't met the love of their life. They want to have children and they're going down the IVF route, and it's just normal. It's just like a normal discussion. I'm like, oh yeah, of course that's what you would do. But when I fell pregnant, I don't think I knew any other single mums, to be honest, that had young children. Oh, one, I did work with one woman who had 2 children that were in early primary school years. And literally the only advice I got from her is, it's bloody hard. That's what she told me. She said, it's bloody hard.
So helpful.
And I'm like, oh, okay. Like, anything else I need to know? I was just everything that I did as a parent, it was on the fly. I was learning via Facebook groups. I was trying to find mothers groups in real life that I could gel with. I found one when I was in Melbourne, but when I moved to Sydney, I found it really difficult. It probably took me a year to find some other mothers who and one of them was a single mother who I'm still friends with now, who were like-minded. We had the same sort of values in life, and I felt comfortable kind of in spending time with them and their children. But it took a while to find that community in Sydney. And that's one of the other things that made it easy for me to leave, because I didn't, in that sort of city environment, it's where I grew up, but it's not where I wanted to be to raise a child anymore. So when we did move to Queensland, I have found the most incredible group of friends, and everyone is very like-minded. And I have one of my best friends is a single mum with a boy the same age as my son. There's quite a few more now, and she actually is somebody that chose to have a baby at the age of 44. She fell pregnant for the very first time with a man who was not her partner. They were in a relationship, but nothing committed. However, he was happy to donate his sperm for her to have a baby. And he already had 2 other boys of his own from a previous marriage. And so that's how she came about to having. So I think it's definitely normal to be a single parent now in Australia, and to go about it in whichever way. It just seems, I wouldn't say it's common. It's probably still more common to go down the traditional routes, but a lot of relationships also end. So women become single parents because of that as well. Yeah.
I'm hearing in your voice what I hear a lot in these discussions, and in the second season, I interviewed this gal who brought the point to focus, which was that it's seen almost socially or culturally as, oh, you're a single mom. Oh, that must be so hard. Or that must not have been your first choice. And there's this like almost negative connotation to it. And what she said was, in listening to this podcast, as well as meeting other single moms, it's the most badass group of like strong, powerful, adventurous women she's ever met. And I cannot agree more with that. Like, it's so funny the reality of what this community of women is like versus what maybe people think that we're like. And when you said earlier that your son is such a treasure, it's clearly you've created this life for you guys that feels in line with who you are, travel included. And clearly you guys have this amazing relationship and you've got this incredible community. And I'm hearing a little bit in your voice, like how empowering this experience has been for you. Is that accurate?
Yeah, that is accurate. And I think it has become easier as he's gotten older. When, as a single parent, you carry, especially if you're a solo parent. So I would say I don't have any co-parent. Like my mum was in the early years. I would call her a co-parent in the early years. However, now I am the solo parent. I carry the weight of all decisions. I carry the weight of like the responsibility of everything, the financial situation, everything. And yes, that makes me bad. But also because through that experience and with situations changing in my life over the last, say, 3-4 years, I have now more time with my son. Our relationship has just improved. And because of that, it's made parenting even more enjoyable. So it's this like beautiful, oh gosh, it's positive. It's, gosh, do you know what I'm trying to say?
Yes, like a positive input loop. Yeah, positive
yes,
feedback loop or whatever. Yeah,
that's it.
I love that. And Denise, what do you do for work? Do you work from home? Do you have a flexible job? What's your kind of work setup?
I am a qualified dental hygienist. I've been a dental hygienist since, I would say for the last 17 years. However, during COVID times, it was the start of 2022, I lost my job because everything shut down in Queensland and I was out of a job and I didn't have a plan B. And it was really terrifying because I have a mortgage as well. And when you've got another mouth to feed and you don't know how you're going to pay your expenses, I had to pack up our life and move out of our home and into a room at my mum's house. Now, her husband had just died, so my stepfather had just passed away. And it was like I was grieving the loss of my livelihood. She was grieving the loss of her husband, and we were in this like little space together. And it was just a really stressful and difficult time. And at that point, I found work as a cleaner. I couldn't do anything else. Like I couldn't find a job in a cafe because I couldn't work in a local pub. I couldn't have contact with people. Like it was just really crazy. I don't know what it was like where you live, but it was crazy. And so a friend got me in touch with somebody who got me a cleaning job. So I was working 3 days a week, bleeding through my savings because cleaning does not pay very much. And so at that time, I started an online business with no experience at all, thinking, gosh, if this can just bring in an extra $100 a week so that I could fill my car up with petrol without stressing out about my card getting declined at the Bowser, then heck, I'm just going to give it a go. With those really small goals, it ended up turning into my full-time income. And I have been able to say goodbye to dental hygiene for good. And that's the reason why in the last couple of years I've had so much extra time with my son that I didn't otherwise have, because prior to that, he was in long daycare. I worked a job when he was 12 months old that was from 8 a.m. till 8 p.m. and it was an hour away from home. So I was gone from 6:45 in the morning till 9:30 at night, and he was a baby. So it was not great. It was not cool. It's not how I wanted to live. And I don't think it's not how any woman envisions what life as a new mum is going to look like literally spending the majority of the day away from your little baby. It was so when he went to school at the age of 5, I noticed our relationship at that time fracturing. because he didn't want to hold my hand. He didn't want to be kissed. He would pull away if I tried to hug him. And I was just so heartbroken. And it was because I was this really stretched and tired mum that was always rushing him out the door in the morning, getting home very late at night, rushing through the, dinner, bath, bed routine, and not really getting that quality time with him. So although when I lost my job, it was an incredibly stressful and scary time, it also led to this other door opening that has given us the time back. And now we walk down the street, like we're walking down the street in Italy just on the weekend, and he's walking in front of me and reaches back to hold my hand to lead me through the crowd. I'm like, oh my goodness, this was my 5-year-old would not hold my hand, but my 9-year-old has come back to me. And yeah, it's been quite the wild ride, but I always had this note, like this tiny little seed of hope in my brain going, something better is coming, and something better did come. And so I'm internally grateful. And it's that business that has allowed me to fund this trip, be here, work from my phone. It's not what I expect. I thought I was going to be a dental hygienist until retirement, but it turns out that
now you're living in Tuscany.
Yeah.
It's crazy how life goes, right? How did you get introduced to Boundless? Is this your first experience living abroad with them? Tell me how that came about. And the reason I ask, and the reason I felt like it was so important to bring a topic like Boundless and a company like Boundless into this podcast, and I already interviewed Elodie, is because I think those considering single motherhood or those who become pregnant and are scared about it are like, my life is over. I'm never going to travel again. All those adventures I had in my future plan are all gone. I'm just going to be clocking in, clocking out, going to daycare, whatever. And I feel like companies like this, ideas like this, and moms like you are such great examples of you can choose a different path for your family dynamic. And so I'm so curious to hear how you were introduced to it and how you decided to make this leap.
I have so much to share on this. And I love this story because, again, it was the universe just throwing something right in front of me at a time that I asked for it. So my son loves cooking. He loves just being in the kitchen with me, and he has since he was little. Since he could sit up on the kitchen bench, he's been cracking eggs for me and stirring stuff for me. And now he can whip up a spaghetti bolognese without my help whatsoever. And earlier this year, I was sitting down with him just on the deck, listening to the birds. And this thought came into my brain, and I looked at him like from nowhere. I just looked at him and I said, you know what? We're going to live in Italy one day. I said, you're going to refine your cooking skills when we're in Italy. And I don't know when, and I don't know how it's going to ever be possible, but I'm thinking like maybe when you're in high school years. And he just looked at me and he's, okay, mum. But for the next week, he was asking me all these questions about Italy. I've been to Italy a couple of times very briefly, never spent a huge amount of time here, but he was asking me where I liked to go, what kind of food I liked to eat, what was my favorite dessert, and like all that next week. And I said, babe, one place that I never got to was Tuscany. I've been to Florence, but I didn't get out into the Tuscan countryside. I said, that's where I want to go. And literally the next week, I was at the beach in Australia, just rinsing after getting out of the sea under the showers with my eyes closed. And I heard somebody call out my name, and I opened my eyes, and a friend of mine who I knew had been traveling around the world for a year with her family. She has girls similar age to my son. She was just standing back in front of, and I didn't know that she was home. I said, oh my gosh, you're back. I knew that she'd been to Italy, but I didn't know anything about her trip. I said, oh, I was just talking to my little boy about Italy last week. I want to hear all about that specific part of your holiday. And she said, oh, you've heard about Boundless Life, haven't you? And I said, no, what is that? And she briefly explained to me what it was about, how the kids go to school, they set you up with your accommodation and all logistics are taken care of. I said, that sounds amazing. I said, whereabouts are they? And she said, they're in like 5 different locations, but only one in Italy, and it's in Tuscany. And that was a mic drop moment. I'm like, what? I said, give me their details. So I booked a discovery call with them as soon as I could. And then when I was on the phone to Bex, chatting about what we wanted to do, because I was thinking, oh, maybe this is something we can do next year. I I said, actually, can we just rewind? If you've got a spot this year, can you let me know, because I'll sign up, take my money. And she said, we actually do. We have the September cohort. And that was how I found out about it. It was the universe just put it in front of me after I asked for it. And I thought, I can't ignore this. So here we are. My son does cooking on Tuesday afternoons and he loves it. And it's just wild. So that's
So it
how I
was
came across
January
it.
that you guys had this conversation, and you
Yep.
just moved to Tuscany a month ago.
September. Yes.
Oh
Yep.
my gosh.
We're halfway through the cohort now. And I'm absolutely loving it. And I definitely have the other destinations on my horizon.
Yeah, Elodie was telling me they have a 60% return rate for families, because she made just this beautiful point, and I'm so interested in your experience, that especially with kids that are a little bit older, you just get into the same day-to-day schedule, right? School, bath, work, blah, 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 blah. And doing a boundless experience changes all of that and allows you to spend this different time and this exploratory time, this adventurous time with your child. And it really helps and changes your relationship in all these cool ways. And she said that families get addicted, is the wrong word, but enjoy that shift so much, instead of just feeling like you're in the grind. Has that been your experience as well, of just like feeling like there's some more freedom in the adventure of this?
Oh, absolutely. My son, at like day one, he loved it. He was running to school ahead of me on day two. So it was a very seamless transition for him to come into this space, meet new children, meet new teachers. And he loves going to school Monday to Friday. When I suggested we might skip half a day, he was like, no, I don't want to do that. I don't want to miss school. I don't want to miss school. He really loves it. And then we do get to do in fun things even after school. The tiny little town that, well, I say it's tiny. It's small, but it's still got a lot to offer here. We do stuff in the afternoons with the other families. We might meet at the park. There's a number of parks that we go to. So there's enough to keep us busy throughout the week. And then come the weekends, we can just go out and explore the countryside. So I did something that was very scary and challenging for me when I first did it, was hired a car, because in Australia we drive on the other side of the road, and all of the cars here, a lot of them are manual, like stick shift, which I haven't driven for 20 years, but I got out of my comfort zone. We did that. We went and explored some incredible parts of Tuscany. It's quite a large area. We've seen all these beautiful little medieval towns on top of hilltops, and we've been to the coast, and we've experienced challenges where what I love about traveling with children, it teaches so many things, and like it builds their character in ways that you wouldn't necessarily be able to at home. And one of the things is when things don't go to plan, and that happened to us. It's happened to us a couple of times, but last weekend we spent the whole day in Florence from 9:30 in the morning. It was like 9:30 at night, and bought a ticket to go home and realized all the trains were cancelled. And I was like, oh, don't lose it, Denise. It's okay. We can figure this out. And he just remains calm the whole time. He's exhausted, but we figure things out on the fly. And that's just one of the things that I really love about traveling with him, is that he's been through this a couple of times now, and he knows that mum's going to figure it out, and everything is figure outable. And it just builds this resilience amongst them that, I don't know, there's so many things. But in terms of exploring on the weekends, there's an endless amount of things to do. And what I have found is that it's really changed his curiosity about the world. Like, I'm getting so many more questions from him about all sorts of things, about history, about culture, about people, that I don't think that if he was to read a history book at home, I wouldn't get the same kind of the same level of curiosity or interest. So it's opened up the most incredible conversations, especially when we're in a car for 3 hours driving through the countryside. I keep the radio off. I generally don't put a podcast on. It's just silence where we can talk, and we just talk and talk. And he asks all these questions, and it just blows my mind, like the things that he's curious about. And in his class, he's got friends from, I think there's 7 different nationalities represented. But some of his best friends don't really even speak very good English. There's a couple of families that are here from Israel and that are around his age, and they are really tight. Like they enjoy spending time together so much, but their English isn't as obviously as good as his, because obviously he's fluent, but they find a way to communicate and get along. And like he said, Mum, on his second day of school, he said, Mum, I want to learn Italian, but I also want to learn Hebrew. And he comes home and he tells me some Hebrew words, and there's families from all over. So I love that part of this world schooling experience as well, is that he's learning, it's opening his mind to other parts of the world and to other ways of living. Yeah, I guess the positives just, they're almost endless for me.
Oh God, I love that. And how many other families did you start with in your cohort?
I'm pretty sure there's 21 families. I don't think anyone's left. So there's still 21 families. But there are 2 other single mums apart from me.
Wow.
Yes. And so
it was a higher percentage when Elodie told me than I thought, which I thought was super exciting and so cool. And how have you found the connections with the other families?
Great. So I guess as a solo parent, that is one of the bonuses of this community, is that it really is a community. So I'm living in a block that has 6 other families. We have an internal courtyard, and it's security building. So it's very safe. So it's been open door policy. Like my doors are always open. We've got the 3-year-old from next door comes in and hangs out with us sometimes. And actually her and her mum were quite sick over the last week. And it is hard as a single parent to parent when you are absolutely bedridden and when your child is sick too. So because of that community, I was able to go grocery shopping for her and bring her some things and leave it at a doorstep and bring her some coffee. And when her daughter was better, take her daughter out to a party with the other kids while she could rest. So the community is, for a single parent especially, is one of the absolute perks. And all of the families are getting on. Like when the mums are constantly organising lunches and dinners. And it was just last night, we're halfway through the cohort, the dads decided to organise their own thing, because they're like, the women are always doing stuff. What about us? So they organised a poker night, which they thoroughly enjoyed. But the community is great. And the other thing about it is that because we're here immersing in the local community. We're not just day trippers that are coming and going. And it also means that we feel like we're part of the local community as well. Some of the kids, like my boy and a couple of his other friends, joined the local soccer club training last week. Some of them are going to continue doing that. So they just, even though the coaches did not speak a word of English, they were happy to welcome in these international kids to come and play and train with them, which was really special. And yeah, honestly, it is one. I think I heard our founder, Maro, say the other day that people come for the travel and the education, but they stay for the community, which is what you were saying about how there's such a high return rate. Families will go from one cohort to the next because they form such incredible bonds and they just follow each other. Apparently Spain next year, at the start of next year, completely booked out. Because
that's what I've seen. That's what Elodie told me too, is some families like really form connections with each other and just decide where they're going next together, which is amazing. And it seems, even just reading on the Facebook group, like it just seems like maybe it's just the like-mindedness of the way all of these families parent, or the way that you're all looking for adventure. But it seems like for the most part, these cohorts all really have a great time together. And I was laughing because I went on the Boundless Families Facebook page, and I think there were, 200 families on there. And I have mutual connections on Facebook to every single family.
Wow.
These are my people. Obviously, these are my people. And obviously, I already know people or have a lot of like first degree connections with folks who are seeking this out. And I'm probably a year away from being able to go financially, but I'm so excited about it. The community piece for me is definitely the key part, because traveling solo just with a toddler sounds exhausting. And my daughter loves school and she loves other kids. And so that would be such a big piece of it for her to have kind of a well-rounded experience. And so the more I hear, the more I'm like you. It's, if I had the money, you could have it right now. You could have all of it. But I'm just trying to figure out when the best time is for her and the right age and all of that.
Yes, yeah. And I feel like I think they're called the explorers, the 1 to 6 year olds are the biggest part of our cohort at the moment. There's not as many of the older kids, but yeah, they're doing it. And I feel some families that are here have spent 3 years planning this because they heard about Boundless Life when it first launched. And so it's taken them 3 years. One of the other single mums that's here, she also has been planning it for a couple of years at least and saving up her leave so that she could take a sabbatical. So that's how she's doing it with her 2 girls. The other single mum that has the 3-year-olds, she's a doctor, so she does online medical appointments from 5 till 8 p.m. Monday to Friday. So she can work while she's here, and she gets a babysitter for those 3 hours while she's working. We've got great babysitters here. Boundless Life know how to set us up with like beautiful people. And yeah, but other families are being very creative as well. There's another family here who the mum is working. She's from the States, but she works from 5 in the afternoon till 2 a.m. And her work don't even know that she's not in the country. So she just works remotely and they all just think she's working from her home. And so it's really cool. People are very creative to do this. They make it work for their life. They know they want to do it and they just find a way.
Yeah. And I do really feel, as you said, as difficult as COVID was, I think opportunities like this have sprung up from that, and people's ability to work from home and work remotely and have that flexibility have definitely sprung up a little bit more since then. And I also feel like I'm a realtor, so I would have to just fully take the time off, which is a little bit trickier, but I feel like people are just a little bit more open-minded about everyone's lives going on behind the screen of my kid is sick, I got to show up late to this call, or hey, we're doing this trip, or hey, this is happening. There's just a little bit more humanity happening, I think.
Yep.
In people's ability to just be on a screen and be on Zoom and be in a hoodie as I am and just roll with the punches a little bit more than we were so polished before COVID. I think
I agree.
That polish wore off.
And I think I don't know if Elodie told you about the founding story, about Mauro's story, because
what is that story?
He's originally from Brazil, but has been living in Canada for, I'm just taking a stab in the 15 years or something like that, and has had 3 young children, young girls 3 years ago. Beautiful life. His background is in tech. So he'd been part of 2 tech startups. But he said to his wife, I just want to go and travel with the girls. I want to take a year off and I want to see the world, because again, it was towards the start of COVID, I think. And yeah, that was just his thought. Life is short. Let's go. And so they packed up their life, but they had some of their friends say, we would love to come with you. Can we come with you? And he was like, I guess so. Sure. Let's do this together. So he started a WhatsApp group. Before he knew it, there were 40 other families in this WhatsApp group. And he was thinking to himself, wow, am I meant to be planning all of your holidays? What's going on? But he was really intrigued. There's something here. There's something that these families are craving, are wanting for their life. What is it? So he started interviewing all these families and seeing what their desires and their motivation was around traveling with their families, with their kids when their kids are young. And it literally just came back to the same thing. It's like we have this really short, fleeting moment of time where our kids want to be with us, where they are with us, where we can travel and explore and create these incredible memories together before they're 18 like that. And having a 9-year-old, I'm halfway there. I can tell you, it goes too fast. And so he realized that families still want to travel and be with their children. They don't want to sacrifice their kids' education. And to be a kind of parent, I tried homeschooling my son for 6 months. My ideals were very high. the reality was very low for me. I'm not the kind of parent that can do that. And so this kind of ticked all boxes. They opened up the first, I think it was in Portugal, I think it was Sintra. And it was, 3 years ago now, for these families who wanted to spend a good amount of time away and immerse into a culture, but not sacrifice the kids' education. And so it's gotten bigger from there, but in a really beautiful, controlled way, because Mauro wants to make sure he keeps it, like, the quality of the educators and the education high. He doesn't want to lose control over that, because he'd had quite a bit of interest from some really big investors who wanted him to expand very rapidly, like very quickly, like a lot of new destinations. And he said no to that, because I really want to make sure we don't lose the quality. And so, we've got 6 destinations. There's talk of another 2 opening up in South America to really cater for the American market, because it can be tricky with time zones as people are working remotely when you're in Europe. So South America would make it easier. So and he and his family have done 12 or 13 out of the 15 cohorts. So they live it as well. So they move from destination too. And I love that founding story, because it's basically his values are the same as ours. And that's why it works so well, is because those values are very strong.
Yeah. You're halfway through your cohorts. You have 6 weeks left.
Something like that.
Not to belabor that, but how are you feeling about that transition back home, especially with a 9-year-old back into traditional schooling? I don't know if you've even gone there mentally, but how are you guys thinking that is going to go?
I actually think it will be fine. I haven't decided what we're doing. I bought a one-way ticket here, so I don't have a return ticket home. But because of the Schengen zone, you can only be in the majority of Europe for 3 months before you have to leave again. We might spend a month in Indonesia on the way home, and then go back to Australia. But when we return, it's still summer school holidays in Australia. And my son, he doesn't go to a traditional state school in Australia. For the last 2 years, he went to a Montessori. It's in quite a small school, very, very similar to what he's doing here in Boundless. It's multi-age learning, small group sizes, quite individualized learning. So he can go back there and he'll just slot in straight away. And there's another really great homeschooling group that he also has been to. So I'm just debating which one to send him back to. But he's pretty resilient. He loves his life back home too. He loves his friends back home, and he will 100% be sad to leave his friends, because he's made some really incredible friends here. I know that will be hard to say goodbye. But other than that, all of the families, I think, are going their different ways after this. I don't think anyone's going on to the January cohorts. A couple of families might be, but I think the majority of us have got different plans. Some are going to South America, and some are, so we're going home. Very possible that in another 9 months or 12 months, we'll be catching up with some of the friends, maybe, or making new ones in another cohort.
Were you able to go on this cohort and just have your home at home? Did you rent it out? How did you work out the logistics of all of that?
Yes, I did rent it out. I found a beautiful girl from the UK that was moving to my location, and I found her on a backpacking Facebook group, I think, and had a chat to her, and she's absolutely incredible. I have a cat as well, so I was concerned about putting my cat into a cat hotel for 3 or 4 months, which I didn't really want to do. And she loves cats. She's been looking after my cat. She wanted to keep her. It actually worked out so well. I couldn't be happier. So she's paying rent, which covers most of my mortgage. There's still obviously other expenses on top of that I have to cover, but it's nice to have most of the mortgage covered. And then we live very small. Like, we have a small apartment. It's very close to the beach, but because of that, we don't have a lot of stuff. So I can put the majority of the stuff that I didn't take with us just into a small storage space very locally. And there was a lot of logistical stuff that I had to figure out, but actually getting here, Boundless Life just made it really easy, because as a single parent, like I was saying before, you've got so many things to check off your list all of the time. It never ends. But all I had to do with this is know the location that I was going to, and pay my money and buy my ticket.
Yeah.
And know what to pack.
That's the thing for me that keeps coming back to, wait a minute, you're going to plan activities and people are going to organically plan get-togethers, and that's not all on me. That sounds so incredible to be able to experience the culture and know that someone else is saying, hey, while you're here, you should do these things. And we're going to make sure you guys meet up on the weekends, or there's things that are available to you. And the kids are going to play soccer together and you guys are going to have coffees. Like all of that it's just like such a perfect fit for the way that I operate. And as a single mom, I feel like managing my time, my social life, my daughter's time and her social life, it takes so much just planning to get even a little date with another mom and kiddo together, right? And having everyone even in the same, like potentially building is my dream scenario. I would love to live in like a friend commune and have everyone just next door to each other. So everything about it really resonates with me. In the US, transitioning schools is a little bit more difficult, I think, although I've heard from other families that have gone through Boundless that they haven't had a tough time kind of getting their schools to agree to like accepting the credits of this. So that might be a hurdle some people would go through, but I do feel like, yeah, go ahead.
Sorry to interrupt you, but I have heard some of the American families talk about this point, and all I have heard them say is their kids' schools said, oh my gosh, that sounds incredible. They haven't had much of a difficult time with it. Some of the kids are still doing some work from home that they have to complete, but I don't think they all are. And my son certainly isn't. I give him some extra work sometimes, like throughout the week, which he does like really like in a matter of 10, 15 minutes. Yeah. But yeah, from what I've heard from the Americans in the cohort is that they would just all, the schools were like, yes, go do this. This sounds incredible. You should definitely do it.
Yeah, good. Okay, good. That makes me feel better. I'm so grateful for your time. I'm continually just inspired by not only all the moms I speak to, but all the families in Boundless, the way that you guys have chose to intentionally create the dynamic with your kiddo and the life that you have. And I think it just constantly reminds me that this is up to me and I get to do whatever I want with my little family. And I love that so much about solo parenting. So thank you so much for your time. I know it's the end of your day, but I love meeting you and talking to you. And who knows, maybe we'll overlap on a cohort somewhere in the world in the next few years.
Yes, we absolutely might. And it's been such a pleasure. I'm absolutely here to give as much encouragement as I can to the single mums, to the solo mums out there, because it is literally a choose your own adventure life. You can make anything happen with you and your children. Just do it. Everything is figure outable. You can do this.
Oh, I love you so much. I needed this chat today. I had a long night with my toddler and I'm like, I just needed a little hit of single mom inspiration. So thank you, Denise. I appreciate it. Thanks so much for listening to today's episode. I hope you enjoyed it. For more information about the podcast or me, go to youandmekidpod.com. See you soon.
The Rodecaster Pro 2 is the world's most powerful all-in-one audio solution for all types of creators, including podcasters. Graffiti and Julius use one at the plug. It offers studio-quality audio and revolutionary features for creators. While being incredibly easy to use, Rodecaster Pro 2, all-in-one production solution for podcasting. It's on sales for $690 right now, and there's a link in this episode description. Check it out.
Thank you for listening to this episode. If you or your company are looking to jump into the podcast world, now is the time. The Plug Agency is here to connect you to the full power of podcasting. You just record and leave the rest to us. The people are listening and want to hear from you. Theplug-agency.com. That's theplug-agency.com. Click the link in the episode description for an exclusive offer.